Beneath the surface of the ocean, there's a world full of strange, unexplained, and obscure mysteries. Today we'll be going through aquatic mysteries that have left many searching for answers. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tier 1. More than 80% of the ocean is unexplored. Over 70% of the Earth's surface is covered with water, but there's more than 80% of the ocean that remains unexplored. The ocean is pretty vast, with large areas that are still unknown to us. The unexplored parts include deep trenches, underwater mountains, and the massive water columns that are between the surface and the ocean floor. This makes the ocean one of the least understood areas of our planet, with many mysteries to still uncover. One reason for why it's so unexplored is the difficulty in reaching its extreme depths. The pressure, cold water, and darkness causes challenges for researchers and equipment. While there are satellites that can map the ocean floor from space, it only provides rough estimates for what really lies beneath, and misses many important details like underwater ridges, seamounts, and ecosystems. More accurate methods include sonar mapping, which are solely filling these gaps, but are still only used for a fraction of the ocean. There are efforts like Seabed 2030, which are working to map the entire ocean floor by 2030 using technology like sonar and uncrewed drones. Such technology is already providing clear images of the seafloor, but over 70% of it still needs to be mapped in higher detail. Mapping the ocean is pretty crucial for understanding everything from marine ecosystems to how the ocean's current affects global climate patterns. Also, these maps can help us locate new resources and even predict natural disasters like tsunamis. Atlantis. Atlantis is often described as a mysterious island that was said to exist in the Atlantic Ocean, located off the Strait of Gibraltar. The idea of Atlantis comes from two pieces of work by Plato, who was a philosopher. One is titled Timaeus and the other Critias. In Timaeus, Egyptian priests are said to have spoken to Solon, who was an Athenian lawmaker, and described an island that was much larger than both Asia Minor and Libya combined, lying just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is referred to as the Strait of Gibraltar. According to him, Atlantis existed around 9,000 years before Solon's time, and it was a wealthy and powerful island. Those who ruled Atlantis were able to conquer many areas around the Mediterranean until they were finally defeated by Athens and its allies. Eventually, Atlantis became corrupt and immoral, which, according to the legend, led to their island being destroyed by earthquakes and sinking into the sea. In Critias, Plato describes Atlantis as an ideal society before it fell to ruin. Even though his descriptions of Atlantis is probably fictional, it captured the imagination of many throughout history. For example, in medieval Europe, writers that were inspired by Arab geographers believed that the story was based on a real place. Over the centuries, various attempts have been made to link Atlantis to real-world locations. After the Renaissance, some scholars suggested that Atlantis could be identified with places like America, Scandinavia, or even the Canary Islands. Now, there is a possibility that the myth of Atlantis may have been inspired by real historical events. For example, there's a story that reflects ancient Egyptian records of a catastrophic volcanic eruption that occurred on the island of Thera, which is modern-day Santorini, around 1500 BCE. This eruption was pretty big, and its aftermath included earthquakes and tsunamis that impacted civilizations adversely in the region. The disaster could have contributed to the idea of a once powerful civilization which got wiped out by natural forces and created the basis of Atlantis' story. Kraken. The Kraken is usually described as a giant sea monster that lived off the coasts of Norway and Greenland. For a long time, sailors told stories of this enormous creature that could drag entire ships down into the ocean. In 2012, scientists even made a discovery that might explain some of these ancient stories. They found a giant squid that matched the physical descriptions of the Kraken. With the use of deep-sea exploration and special lighting to attract predators, they were able to observe the squid, and it was known to live in very deep depths and occasionally seen near the surface of the ocean. There are some early sources that suggest the Kraken could swallow entire ships. One of the earlier reports came from the 13th century Icelandic saga Orvar Odd Saga, which explains two massive creatures, Hafgufa and Lyngbakr. Hafgufa, in particular, was thought to represent the Kraken and was said to be so big that it could consume men, ships, and even whales. According to the saga, it would stay submerged for long periods of time, only to rise for a short period of time, making it even more scary to those who encountered it. The idea of the Kraken might have came from early encounters with giant squids, which were just able to grow to really large sizes, such as 30 meters long. These squids usually stay deep underwater though, but may surface occasionally. Sightings of these creatures by sailors could have led to the stories of the Kraken. Mermaids. Mermaids as we know them are shown as half human and half fish creatures that come from ancient folklore around the world. These myths have been present for thousands of years, with stories going back to as early as 1000 BCE. In these early reports, mermaids were sometimes linked to dangerous events like shipwrecks or storm, which shows that they're not only beautiful, but also quite dangerous. For example, in African folklore, there are water spirits like Mamiwata, which are mermaid-like, while other myths, like the Caribbean La Sirene, that reflect similar beliefs about these aquatic beings. Throughout history, there have been famous explorers such as Christopher Columbus who claimed to have seen mermaids during his voyages. In 1493, Columbus described seeing 3 female forms near the Caribbean, though he noted that their faces were not as beautiful as typically described. Historians and scientists believe that what Columbus and other sailors saw were likely marine mammals such as manatee or dugongs, whose human-like forms could easily have been mistaken for mermaids, especially when you're at sea for so long. The fascination with mermaids continues for centuries though, with some pirates like Blackbeard claiming to have seen them and even adjusting his course to avoid certain waters because it was thought that they would be haunted by mermaids. In more modern times though, there have been occasional reports of mermaid sightings, such as one in Israel in 2009, where locals claimed to see a mermaid perform aerial tricks in the water. However, there is no scientific evidence that supports the existence of such creatures, and many of these sightings are believed to be the result of misidentified sea animals. Now, there is an aquatic ape hypothesis that proposes a possible explanation for human fascination with mermaids. This theory, which isn't really scientifically accepted, does suggest that early human ancestors may have spent a period of time adapting to a semi-aquatic life, which could explain certain human traits like hairlessness or the ability of infants to swim shortly after birth. Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is a section of the North Atlantic Ocean which is roughly bordered by the southeastern coast of the US, Bermuda, and parts of Greater Antilles, including Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica. Now, the exact boundaries of the triangle aren't exact, but it covers an area between 500,000 and 1.5 million square miles. The region has a triangular shape, but it doesn't appear on official maps, and it's not recognized by US Board on Geographic Names. There have been reports of strange disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle since the mid-1800s, but the term Bermuda Triangle itself wasn't coined until 1964, when writer Vincent Gaddis used it to describe a location where ships and planes seem to vanish mysteriously. Despite its eerie reputation, there are studies that show disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle don't occur more frequently than other similar areas in the Atlantic. But still, there are 2 notable incidences that add to this mystery. The USS Cyclops, which is a US Navy ship, disappeared in 1918 when it was traveling from Brazil to Baltimore. Then almost 30 years later, in 1945, there were 5 US bombers known as Flight 19 that vanished in the same area. Now, neither of these cases led to any wreckage or explanation for the disappearances. The Bermuda Triangle became even more known after Charles Berlitz's 1974 book, The Bermuda Triangle, came out when he suggested connections to the lost city of Atlantis. Although his claims just led to fascination, there are scientific studies that have painted a less dramatic picture. For example, a 2013 study by the World Wildlife Fund examined shipping routes worldwide and determined that the Bermuda Triangle isn't even among the top 10 most dangerous waters for maritime travel. Actually, the triangle is one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, with heavy traffic both by sea and even air. The region also experiences frequent tropical storms and hurricanes. With the Gulf Stream current running through it, it causes sudden changes in weather. Also, the Bermuda Triangle sometimes coincides with the agonic line, where the true north and magnetic north align, meaning there's no need for compass adjustments. This alignment and natural hazards in the region could explain why navigational challenges are reported in that area. The Bermuda Triangle also contains the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean, which is known as the Milky Depth, located in the Puerto Rico Trench. This area reaches just over 27,000 feet, which makes recovering wreckage from disappearances really hard. However, there's still so much that's unknown about the Bermuda Triangle. It's unclear how many ships and planes could have disappeared here, but the most common estimates are around 50 ships and 20 planes. Megalodon. The Megalodon is one of the largest sharks said to exist, living between 16 to 2.5 million years ago during the Cenozoic era. Although it's been compared to the great white shark because of similar predatory lifestyles, the Megalodon belonged to a different lineage. There are fossils of this ancient predator that have mainly been found in the form of teeth, shark skeletons, which are mostly made of cartilage and don't fossilize well. There are estimates of the Megalodon's size from the massive teeth it had, which reached over 7 inches. Now, based on these teeth, it is believed that the Megalodon could have grown to lengths of 50 to 60 feet, or maybe even more. Its jaws would have been powerful enough to engulf prey, which means it has a powerful bite force of over 40,000 pounds of pressure. Megalodons thrived as a top predator in the world's ocean, feeding on a variety of marine animals, including whales, seals, and other sharks. Its size and strength made it the dominant predator of its time, apparently. However, the exact reason for the extinction of the Megalodon is still unclear. It is believed that they disappeared around 2.6 million years ago, potentially due to the combination of climate change and a reduction in prey availability as marine mammals evolved. The disappearance of large whale species and cooling ocean temperatures also probably played a role in its extinction. Now, although Megalodon is widely believed to have gone extinct millions of years ago, there have been occasional reports of giant shark sightings in modern times. In 1875, 2 teeth were recovered from a deep-sea exploration thought to be only around 10,000 to 14,000 years old, suggesting that Megalodon may have survived longer than initially believed. However, these estimates were later discredited because the method they used was obsolete. The manganese dioxide coating on the teeth could have made them appear younger than they actually were. Other sightings, such as the 1918 report from Australian fishermen who claimed to see a massive shark nearly 100 feet long, had also been dismissed as mistaken identity because it was probably involving whale sharks or basking sharks. Thalassophobia. Thalassophobia is the fear of deep bodies of water, such as oceans, seas, and lakes. While many people experience a type of discomfort around large bodies of water, thalassophobia involves a much more severe and irrational fear, which causes panic or extreme anxiety when someone is near or even thinking about deep water. Thalassophobia can be triggered by factors such as traumatic experiences like near drowning or witnessing a dangerous event involving water, or witnessing a dangerous event involving water. Some may even develop this phobia from hearing stories about shipwrecks or sea monsters, while others might have a family history of anxiety disorders that make them more susceptible to developing phobias. In some cases, this fear can also be influenced by evolutionary factors, such as humans who avoided deep water might have been more likely to survive. The symptoms of thalassophobia are pretty similar to other anxiety disorders. When faced with a feared stimulus, such as a vast ocean or deep lake, a person may experience sweating, a rapid heartbeat, dizziness, or even panic attacks. This fear can become so intense that it disrupts daily activities, with many individuals avoiding any situation that might bring them near water, such as a vacation or any water-related hobbies like swimming. Tier 2. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is a massive collection of floating debris which is located between the coastlines of North America and Japan. It's made up of mainly 2 parts, the Western Garbage Patch near Japan and the Eastern Garbage Patch between Hawaii and California. They are connected by ocean currents that trap plastic and other waste, which creates a vortex of debris. Most of the trash in the patch is made up of microplastics, which are tiny pieces that aren't always visible to the naked eye but can make the water look like a cloudy soup. There are larger objects like fishing gear and bottles that are also mixed in. These plastics don't biodegrade but break into smaller pieces through a process called photodegradation, which is when sunlight breaks them down over time. Now, this impacts the marine life in a pretty bad way. Animals such as sea turtles and seabirds often mistake plastic for food, and it leads to injury or death. Fishing nets in the patch can also entangle and drown marine mammals, which is known as ghost fishing. The patch also disrupts the ocean's food web by blocking sunlight from reaching plankton and algae, which are essential for marine ecosystems. Cleaning up the patch is pretty difficult too though because of its size and location. There have been some efforts focusing on reducing plastic waste, but experts estimate that it would take years of effort to remove even a small percentage of that debris. This garbage patch continues to grow and shows a need for global cooperation and reduced plastic population to protect the marine environment. Green flash. A green flash is an optical event that sometimes happens for a little while around sunrise or sunset, but it's more frequently seen at sunset though. It's a short flash of green light above the sun's top edge, and usually lasts for only a couple of seconds. There have been a few cases where it can take forms of a green beam shooting upward from the horizon as the sun sets or rises. The green flash happens due to the way Earth's atmosphere splits sunlight into different colors. The atmosphere refracts or bends the light, causing each color to spread out. Light with shorter wavelengths like blue, violet, and green bend more than longer wavelengths than red, orange, and yellow. However, because blue and violet are scattered more by the atmosphere, the green light remains the most visible during the brief moments when the sun dips below or rises above the horizon. These flashes can occur at any altitude, but they're most commonly seen over an open horizon like the ocean. They also happen over cloud tops or mountains and can be seen at any latitude. In equatorial regions, the flash might only last a split second. This phenomenon can also happen with the moon or bright planets like Venus or Jupiter, but this is more rare. Pilots who fly westward often see green flashes because the sunset is drawn out while they travel, allowing the conditions to align. When the air is stable and clear, refraction increases, making the green flash more likely. Sometimes, if conditions are perfect and the air is very clear, a blue flash even might occur instead of a green one. Now, there are 4 types of green flashes. The most common are inferior mirage and mock mirage flashes. Inferior mirages appear as flat, oval shapes and usually happen near sea level when the water's surface is warmer than the air above it. Mock mirages are seen higher up, which appear as thin green strips when the air at ground level is cooler than the air above. Pilots usually witness this type of flash. Another type is the subduct flash, and occurs when atmospheric inversion causes the sun to resemble an hourglass, and in rare cases the top part of the sun may stay green for as long as 15 seconds. Now the most rare one is the green ray, which is a green beam of light that shoots upward from the horizon right after the sun sets, and only lasts for a few seconds. This only occurs under conditions like hazy air and an especially bright green flash. Milky Sea phenomenon. In 1864, Captain Raphael Semmes wrote from his cabin on the CSS Alabama about sailing into a section of water that was so pale it shocked him. He said that everything around him seemed to change, and with a bit of imagination, it felt as if the Alabama had become a ghost ship sailing through an otherworldly, glowing sea. For sailors in the 1800s, many of whom believed in the sea monsters and mermaids, thought the experience of moving through a Milky Sea must have been terrifying. The strange glow went as far as the eye could see, lasting for hours, and the cause was completely unknown to them. Now we know that this phenomena, which is also known as Mareal, is created by bioluminescent bacteria. These bacteria live throughout the ocean, from the surface down to the seafloor, and when gathered in one spot, they emit a ghostly glow. Although modern science has a better grasp on what's happening, there are still mysteries about how and why these glowing seas occur. Stephen Miller, who's a research scientist at Colorado State University, studied bioluminescence for years and calls it the white whale of satellite remote sensing. Earlier, satellite sensors couldn't even detect a faint light of these glowing seas, but the tools Miller uses can now measure even dim lights. One of the most significant observations of the Milky Sea came in 1995 when the steamship Lima reported seeing a pale glow on the horizon off the coast of Somalia. Within a few minutes, the sea around the ship from horizon to horizon appeared to glow. Curious about this report, Miller examined the archived satellite images of the area and was surprised when he found faint patches of light marking the first satellite confirmation of a bioluminescent Milky Sea. Bloop. In 1997, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recorded a strange and ultra-low frequency sound deep in the South Pacific Ocean. This noise is called a bloop, and it might have originated from a massive unknown sea creature. The sound was so powerful and unusual that people thought it could be evidence of a gigantic and undiscovered marine animal, potentially larger than a blue whale. However, in 2012, NOAA scientists offered a different explanation. They said it was most likely due to ice movements like glaciers breaking apart or ice scraping the ocean floor. These events are known as ice quakes and create sounds that are similar to what the NOAA detected. The bloop source was located near the tip of South America, and it was picked up multiple times by a special underwater system of hydrophones. This system is designed by NOAA and is mainly used to listen for underwater seismic activity, tracking marine life, and even picking up ice noise. Even though this ice-related theory seems reasonable, some people think the sound's pattern might point to an animal origin. If the bloop was made by a creature, it would have to be enormous, and larger than any known sea creature. To reference, the blue whale is the largest known animal and reaches almost up to 100 feet in length. But based on the power of the bloop sound, the creature responsible would need to be over 250 feet long. Others think this might be an overestimate, since not all animals produce noise in direct proportion to their size. For example, pistol shrimp are only a few centimeters long and can produce a sound as loud as an engine. This leads some to believe the bloop could have been created by a much smaller animal than originally thought. In 2014, there was another theory saying that the bloop was caused by large chunks of sea ice breaking off from the Antarctic shelf. However, this theory can't be confirmed due to the data that was available at the time. Some also think that an underwater volcanic eruption might have produced the sound, but that theory doesn't really fit the unique frequency of the bloop either. Now, most recently in 2023, it was confirmed that the bloop was caused by movement of glacier ice. Titanic. The RMS Titanic was a massive and luxurious passenger ship built in Belfast, Northern Ireland for voyages between Southampton and New York City. At the time of its launch in 1911, it was the largest ship in the world, measuring 882 feet in length. It was described as unsinkable because of its advanced watertight compartments, though it carried lifeboats for only about half of its passengers. On the 10th of April 1912, the Titanic set out on its maiden voyage with 2,200 passengers and crew, including some of the wealthiest individuals of the time and many third-class immigrants seeking a new life in the US. On the night of April 14, 1912, Titanic struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic. This collision breached the ship's hull and caused water to come in rapidly. Despite its design, the ship sank in the early hours of April 15, leading to the deaths of over 1,500 people. This tragedy shows the lack of sufficient lifeboats and poor emergency protocols and caused major changes in maritime safety. This disaster led to international regulations like the Convention for Safety of Life at Sea, which improved lifeboat requirements and safety standards for all ships. Titanic's wreck was discovered in 1985 by a team led by Robert Ballard, which was located about 1,200 feet underwater and 350 nautical miles from Newfoundland. Since its discovery, researchers have explored the site to learn more about the sinking, and artifacts have been found to preserve the history of the ship. Tsunamis. A tsunami is a series of powerful ocean waves that can cause massive amounts of water onto land, which can sometimes be over 100 feet high and cause significant destruction. These waves are often triggered by undersea earthquakes when the ocean floor shifts, displacing water and sending waves across the ocean. Majority of tsunamis occur in the Pacific's Ring of Fire, which is an area known for frequent earthquakes and volcanic activity. They can also be caused by underwater landslides or volcanic eruptions. Tsunamis move very fast, almost up to 500 miles per hour, and can cross entire oceans in under a day while maintaining their energy. In deep water, these waves may barely be noticeable, but as they reach shallow areas near the shore, they slow down and rise sharply. A warning sign is when coastal waters suddenly retreat and expose the seabed, which is a signal that a massive wave is coming. Tsunamis often occur in phases, and not just one, so the danger may continue even after the first wave hits. Sometimes, tsunamis look more like a fast-moving tide flooding inland rather than a tall wall of water. There are early warnings like the Pacific Tsunami Warning System, which are crucial for giving people time to reach high ground and stay safe. These systems use seismic monitors and water level gauges to detect tsunamis before they hit coastal areas. Tier 3. Giant Siphonophores. The giant siphonophore is one of the most unusual creatures found in the deep ocean. It may look like a single organism, but it's actually made up of a colony of smaller, specialized individuals called zooids. Each zooid has its own specific function, such as feeding, reproduction, or movement. These zooids are so dependent on each other that they cannot survive alone, making the siphonophore a complex living system rather than just a single animal. This creature is related to other animals like jellyfish and corals, but what sets it apart is its impressive size and structure. One of the most well-known species of siphonophore is the giant siphonophore, which can grow up to 40 meters long, making it longer than even a blue whale. Its body is long and thin, almost like a living thread that floats through the dark waters of the deep sea. It's also very delicate and is rarely seen in perfect condition, since it's easily damaged by underwater currents or predators. What makes it especially interesting is how it hunts, since it uses a network of tentacles to catch its prey, which are typically small fish or plankton. These tentacles are equipped with stinging cells called nematocysts that paralyze the prey on contact, much like how a jellyfish stings. Once the prey is immobilized, the feeding zooids digest the meal and provide nourishment for the entire colony. Despite this strategy, the giant siphonophore still moves pretty slow and drifts along with the ocean currents in the deepest parts of the ocean, which can be deeper than 1,000 meters. One of the more obscure and intriguing features of the giant siphonophore, though, is its bioluminescence. Just like the majority of deep-sea creatures, it can produce light. This bioluminescence serves various purposes like attracting prey and even possibly scaring off predators. The light-producing zooids work together and create a glowing effect along the siphonophores' long body. Giant siphonophores are fragile and are rarely encountered by humans, but when they are, it's usually with the help of technology such as remotely operated vehicles that can explore the deep sea. Osborne Reef. In the early 1970s, there was a project called the Osborne Reef and was developed near Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The plan was to create an artificial reef using about 2 million old tires, with the hopes that this would encourage coral growth and create new habitats for marine life. At the time, recycling and conservation were emerging concepts, so the idea of repurposing discarded tires seemed like a smart and environmentally friendly solution. However, the project didn't work out as planned. These tires didn't promote coral growth as hoped. Instead, the rubber was an unsuitable surface for corals to attach to, and no new marine life began to thrive on the tires. Over time, the situation got worse because the ropes used to secure the tires in place broke down in the ocean's salty water and caused the tires to come loose. As the tires drifted across the ocean floor, they caused significant damage to nearby coral reefs. This destruction, as tires moved across the seabed, reached other states like North Carolina. It was at first intended to be beneficial for the environment, but instead ended up doing harm. The tires disrupted natural ecosystems, suffocated existing coral, and killed off marine life that relied on the reefs for survival. The damage caused by the moving tires shows the dangers of using purely research methods in large-scale environment projects. In response to this, there were various groups that began exploring ways to remove the tires and limit further damage. By 2019, there was a cleanup effort with the aim of collecting loose tires and repair the harm done to the marine environment. CAS-2. During 2007, the yacht known as CAS-2 was discovered drifting near the Great Barrier Reef with no sign of its three-man crew, Des Baton, Peter Tunstead, and John Tunstead. They had set off on a trip from Arley Beach, Australia, with the intentions of sailing to Western Australia. But just 3 days into their journey, their boat was found empty. Now, this led to many theories about their fate. Some thought they may have staged their disappearance, while others think they could have been victims of pirates or some other foul play. Some even suggested paranormal events might have occurred, like the famous Mary Celeste incident. When the CAS-2 was found, the scene on board was eerie and confusing. The engine was running, food and drinks were left out, and personal items like clothing and a laptop were undisturbed. The sail was ripped and knives were scattered on the floor, but there was no sign of violence or struggle. This left so many questions unanswered and made it difficult to understand what happened to the crew. After some investigating, authorities developed a likely scenario based on the current evidence. The theory suggests that one of the Tunstead brothers fell overboard while trying to untangle a fishing line caught in the yacht's propeller. The other brother may have tried to help him, but also ended up in the water. Des Baton, who likely attempted to lower the sails and maneuver the boat to rescue them. In the process, there was a sudden shift in the wind, causing the boom to swing and knock him overboard as well. With no one left on board, the yacht drifted away while 3 men who were poor swimmers were left stranded in the open sea and likely drowned because of exhaustion. Submechanophobia. Submechanophobia is a type of phobia that is based on the fear of submerged man-made objects. These objects can range from shipwrecks and underwater statues to simpler items like bowls and machinery. For those with this fear, seeing or thinking about these objects underwater can cause anxiety even though the objects themselves are harmless. The root of this phobia isn't exactly understood, but it's often associated with the unsettling nature of these things in water, where their shapes and appearances can be distorted by light and movement from water. This distortion can make the objects seem eerie, foreign, or even threatening. The fear might be connected to the broader fear of the unknown, such as the vastness and depth of water, which adds to anxiety of not knowing what lurks beneath our surface. One of the main triggers for this phobia is the unnatural contrast of human-made structures in a natural aquatic environment. From a shipwreck or a theme park being partially submerged in water, the idea of something being built by humans and being underwater can cause a fight-or-flight response. Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste is well known for its abandonment in December 1872 as it was found adrift in the Atlantic Ocean about 400 miles from the Azores. The ship was originally built in Nova Scotia in 1861, initially named the Amazon. There were many misfortunes in its early history, like the death of its first captain and damage from accidents. It was eventually sold to an American owner and was renamed to Mary Celeste, and many changes were done to it. On the 7th of November 1872, Captain Benjamin Briggs set sail from New York and carried over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol with the destination of Genoa, Italy. On board were 10 individuals, including Brake's family. Despite difficult weather conditions, the last entry in the ship's log was recorded on November 25th and placed the vessel near Azores. 10 days later, the British ship De Gracia spotted the Mary Celeste, floating and deserted but still in navigable condition. The ship's cargo and belongings were mostly untouched, but there was a lifeboat missing. The amount of water found in the hold wasn't alarming, but it did add to why the crew would abandon a functional ship. There are many explanations for why the ship was abandoned, but the majority of them are ignored. There are theories of piracy, mutiny, or foul play that lack evidence, but it's mostly believed that Captain Briggs probably misjudged the ship's condition and told everyone to leave and was scared that the ship would sink. Faulty equipment was found on board, and it supports this idea that a mistaken assumption led to abandonment. However, the fate of those on board the lifeboat that was missing remains unknown. Even after the incident, the Mary Celeste continued sailing under various owners until 1885, when its new captain, G.C. Parker, deliberately ran it aground near Haiti in an insurance fraud attempt. However, this plan failed and the ship was left to deteriorate on the reef. Rogue waves. A rogue wave is a massive wall of water that forms when several wave crests from the wind come together at just the same moment. These waves can also be created when the waves meet strong currents, which makes them even more unpredictable. What makes rogue waves stand out in particular is their height, which can be twice as tall as the surrounding waves, making them very dangerous. They don't always travel in the same direction as the wind and normal waves either. Sometimes they move against the wind or at an angle. These waves are so powerful that they can flip ships, sweep people overboard, and even wreck large structures like oil platforms or lighthouses. While rogue waves are sometimes confused with tsunamis, they're completely different. Tsunamis come from underwater earthquakes like volcanic activity or landslides, while rogue waves are purely from a result of wave patterns and wind. For centuries, people have told stories about unusually large waves, but these reports were often dismissed as exaggerations. Even when a respected explorer like Jules Sebastian Caesar Dumont d'Urville described a 100-foot wave in the 19th century, his report wasn't taken seriously. Much later though, in 1995, the scientists could prove the existence of rogue waves. This happened when an oil platform off the coast of Norway recorded a rogue wave towering at almost 26 meters tall. This Dropner wave became the first solid evidence that these waves really exist and can reach sizes much larger than anyone had ever predicted. Now, more recently, in 2020, there was another rogue wave recorded near British Columbia, measuring at 17.6 meters tall. While it wasn't as tall as the Dropner wave, it was still 3 times higher than the other waves around it, which made it stand out. There are also older, unconfirmed reports of even bigger waves. For example, in 1933, there was a wave that reportedly hit the USS Ramapo in the North Pacific and was said to be 34 meters tall. There was another case that happened around 1914 when a wave washed over a lighthouse in California. Now, the top of the lighthouse stood around 175 feet above the sea level, but the wave was believed to be as high as 200 feet. Eels. Eels are easily identified by their long, slender bodies, which are usually scaleless and have no pelvic fins. Their bodies are different from most fish, since they have a continuous fin running along their back, around the tail, and along the belly. Although these traits define eels, some species have slight differences depending on their lifestyle. Eel larvae, called leptocephali, look very different from adult eels. They're long, flat, and transparent, and often look gelatinous. They can be small, around 5 to 10 centimeters, but some species, like the spine eel, grow up much larger, around 45 centimeters long. They vary in shape, with some being thin and thread-like, while others are more round and plate-like. During metamorphosis, these larvae lose some of their fins and their organs, such as the intestines, are unusually straight but can develop strange bulges that scientists still find mysterious. Some species even develop extended beak-like snouts and odd eye shapes. As they mature, eels streamline their body further and their gill structures shift backward, helping them with breathing and swallowing food. Some eels, like the Anguilla species, can even breathe through their skin, which is a unique trait among eels. For millions of years, eels have been around and first appeared during the Cretaceous period. Fossils suggest they evolved from fish related to tarpons and bonefishes. In modern times, scientists use a variety of traits to classify them, including their muscle patterns, location of organs, and tooth structure. One of the most accepted classifications was developed by a Canadian biologist, J.S. Nelson, though this may evolve as there are new species being studied all the time. Tier 4. Giant oarfish. The giant oarfish is a long, ribbon-shaped fish that can grow over 30 feet in length. With its unusual body shape, this fish glides silently through the deep oceans, sometimes blending into its surroundings because of its silvery, reflective skin. While its size is impressive, the oarfish has other unique traits as well. It has large eyes and a striking set of red spines that form a crown-like cluster on its head. Unlike predators, oarfish are filter feeders, surviving on small sea creatures like krill and plankton. They live mostly in the mesopelagic zone, which is deep waters that reach up to 1,000 meters down. Thus, the oarfish are rarely seen by humans. In this dark region of the ocean, its vertical swimming position and shiny body help it stay hidden from potential threats. Though they live far below the surface, oarfish occasionally wash up on shores, usually because they are sick or disoriented. Such sightings are rare, and when they do occur, and sometimes lead to old superstitions. The oarfish has some nicknames that are pretty curious. One is thought to come from the way it swims, with its long body resembling the motion of a rowing oar. Another one is the doomsday fish, because some cultures believe that seeing an oarfish is a sign of impending disaster. For example, just before Japan's 2011 earthquake, several oarfish were reported to have washed ashore. This is associated with the disaster, and while it's probably just coincidental, it adds some mystery to the creature's nature. Despite these legends though, scientific knowledge about oarfish remains pretty limited. Since they live in some of the least explored areas of the ocean, the majority of their behavior is still unknown. As deep-sea dwellers, they are also affected by human activity, such as plastic pollution. Plastic waste is now a significant threat to marine life, including species like the oarfish, that live far from human activity. HMS Datal Sea Serpent. In the 19th century, stories of sea serpents were often dismissed as folklore, but the 1848 sighting by the crew of the British naval ship HMS Datal caused some curiosity and became one of the most famous maritime stories. On August 6, 1848, when sailing in the South Atlantic, around 300 miles from what is Namibia, the crew said they saw a massive snake-like creature about 60 feet long. Its head and shoulders were raised about 4 feet above the water, and it moved steadily at 12 to 15 miles per hour, without any noticeable effort to propel itself. The captain, P.M. Kwa, described it as a serpent with a dark brown body, a yellowish throat, and a head resembling a snake's. It had no fins, but was said to have something like a horse's mane or seaweed running down its back. The sighting lasted for about 20 minutes, during which the creature never fully submerged and remained in a clear view as the ship passed. M. Claw's report was later supported by Lieutenant Drummond's drawings and diary entries, which were only revealed in 1997. These drawings added to the credibility of the sighting, as they captured the long, flat head and the dorsal fin that matched the descriptions given at the time. Drummond noted that the animal's head was pointed and flattened, with the fin about 20 feet behind it. His description suggested that only the head and a small portion of the back were visible, contradicting Claw's report of seeing a much larger part of the creature's body. For years, there were many theories about what the crew saw. Some thought that it could have been an undiscovered sea creature, like a giant eel or a surviving plesiosaur. Others think it might have been a large shark, an oarfish, or even just a giant squid. However, none of these theories fully match the descriptions that were provided by the crew. There is a more modern explanation that identifies the creature as a rorqual whale. Rorqual whales are known for their distinctive feeding behavior as they swim with their mouths open, skimming the ocean surface for food. This feeding posture could easily make the whale's head look long and flat, and resembling a serpent as described by the Daedalus crew. Drummond's drawings of the creature's head align with the shape of a rorqual's upper jaw, and its behavior of swimming with its head out of the water could explain the crew's description of it traveling steadily without any visible movement from the rest of its body. The presence of a dorsal fin, which is occasionally visible, also supports the rorqual hypothesis. The fin described by Drummond was low and concave, similar to that of a sei whale. The mane-like appearance that's noted by Kwa could have been the result of the whale's blowholes or some damage to the dorsal fin, which could have been dealt by an orca. Also, the sei whale's grey to dark brown coloring, along with its whitish baleen bristles, could account for the creature's coloration as described by the crew. While the sighting occurred in poor weather conditions with cloudy skies and rough seas, the crew did have telescopes and gave them a clear view of the animal. This prolonged observation and detailed drawings lead to the conclusion that the Daedalus serpent was most likely a rorqual whale engaging in surface skim feeding. Brine pools. Deep-sea brine pools are odd environments where very salty water collects in depressions on the ocean floor. These pools are only found in specific places like the Gulf of Mexico, the Mediterranean, and the Red Sea. Most brine pools are pretty small and reach a few hundred square meters to a few square kilometers, but they contain a surprising range of marine life in otherwise barren deep-sea environments. What makes brine pools especially strange is that their water is far saltier than regular seawater and contains almost no oxygen and has a lower pH, making it more acidic. These factors create one of the harshest places on Earth where life still exists. Despite these challenges, there is a variety of species, from microorganisms to larger marine life, that thrives here. The microorganisms that live in these pools are of particular scientific interest because some produce substances with potential health benefits like antibacterial and anti-cancer properties. The extreme conditions in these pools also give scientists clues about how life might have begun on Earth and where it might be found on other planets. In the Red Sea, where most of the world's brine pools are located, these pools are from ancient salt deposits that were left during the Miocene era. The Red Sea's brine pools are divided into two main types: those found in the deep axial trough at depths greater than 1,000 meters, and others located on the shallower coastal shelf, which are less than 850 meters deep. The deeper pools are notable for their warm waters and lack of oxygen. The shallower pools, like the Thuwal Seeps and Afifi Brine Pool, share these same traits but are located closer to the shore. A discovery was made in 2020 when a new set of brine pools, called the NEOM brine pools, was found in the Gulf of Aqaba. This find was unique because these pools were located just 2 kilometers from the coast and much closer than previous discoveries, like the Thuwal Seep, which is 25 kilometers offshore. These pools sit at a depth of 1,700 meters, provide an opportunity to study how sediments from coastal events such as tsunamis, flash floods, and earthquakes get deposited in these deep environments. These sediments could hold valuable information about the region's geological past and help scientists better understand historical environment changes. Blue whale mating ritual. Blue whales use their unique vocalizations to find their mates. Some of these sounds include pulses and groans and make them some of the loudest animals on Earth. Under certain conditions, their calls can travel up to 1,000 miles and allow them to communicate across long distances of the ocean. Researchers also think these sounds help blue whales to navigate the deep and dark parts of the sea. Males use deep songs to attract females, with the depths of the song often indicating their size and strength, which qualities females find appealing. Besides singing, male blue whales have other ways of showing off. They sometimes inflate the skin around their throats to appear larger and release streams of bubbles from their blowholes and slap the water with their powerful fins. This is very important since blue whale populations are slowly increasing, leading to more competition among males. Females are thought to judge potential mates based on size and the depth of their songs, which suggests strength and maturity in the males. Breeding season for blue whales happens mostly during the winter, once they reach maturity, and this can happen between 5 and 15 years of age. During this time, whales migrate long distances to breeding areas, and males use their songs to compete for attention. When a female chooses a mate, the pair performs a courtship that includes synchronized diving, singing, and other behaviors before mating underwater. Once a female is pregnant, the calf develops in her womb for about 15 months. Blue whale calves are born impressively large, measuring around 23 feet long and weighing about 5,000 pounds. They are strong swimmers from birth and stay close to their mothers and nurse for 6 to 7 months. During this time, the mother produces over 50 gallons of milk each day to nourish her calf, which grows rapidly as it travels alongside her during migrations. Blue whale mothers typically give birth once every 2 to 3 years to ensure they can dedicate enough time and energy to raise their calves. Blue whales often mate with multiple partners during a single breeding season. This allows to maintain their population, with individuals living an average of 80 to 90 years. Purple orb. While studying the Pacific Ocean floor near California, scientists stumbled upon a strange purple orb that left them confused. The discovery was made by researchers aboard the exploration vehicle Nautilus, which is a 64-meter-long vessel dedicated to underwater exploration in the region. The researchers shared a video of their find, describing it as an unidentified purple orb and openly stating their confusion. In the video, the scientists can be heard talking about the orb's nature, with one giving it a humorous name, Blobus purpurus. Its smooth, vibrant appearance made it stand out from the surrounding seafloor. As they considered retrieving it for closer examination, a red crab approached the orb and briefly made contact. The researchers paused and debated whether it might be an egg sac or some other marine structure. One team member suggested leaving it alone to avoid disturbing spider eggs. Despite the hesitation though, they used a suction device to collect the orb for further study. After consulting with other experts, it's proposed that the orb could be a pleural branch, which is a type of sea slug. Baltic Sea Anomaly. While humans have sent astronauts to the moon, only 2 manned missions have ever went to the ocean's deepest point. In 2012, Swedish treasure hunters from the Ocean X team stumbled upon an unusual object on the Baltic Sea floor. on a treasure hunting mission, the team decided to take one final pass with their sonar equipment after 9 days of searching. To their surprise, they detect a strange circular formation with what appeared to be stair-like structures. Peter Lindbergh, who was the team's leader, described the find during a radio interview. He noted the odd stair-like shapes and said that if the object were artificial, it must have been created tens of thousands of years ago, maybe even before the Ice Age. He also admitted it could be a natural feature, such as a meteorite. Theories range from it being the remnants of a UFO or a sunken ship to a piece of the lost city of Atlantis. Despite their excitement, the images that circulated at the time were just artistic interpretations and not actual photographs. The actual sonar images were less detailed, and some scientists questioned the accuracy of the equipment that was used to capture them. Further investigation was conducted, and rock samples from the site were collected and analyzed. Stockholm University geologist Volker Bruchert examined the samples, and it turned out to be typical stones found in the Baltic region, such as granite, gneiss, and sandstone. These rocks are common in glacial basins like the Baltic Sea, where glaciers could have transported them from distant locations. Most experts believe the formation itself is likely a natural feature, possibly a glacial deposit or a rock outcrop. Devil's Sea. The Devil's Sea lies near Japan's Pacific coast and is part of what is referred to as the 12 Vial Vortices. There are regions where the Earth's electromagnetic forces are thought to be unusually strong. The Devil's Sea, sometimes called the Dragon's Triangle, stretches between Japan and the Bonin Islands, which makes up the majority of the Philippine Sea. Now, the exact boundaries of this area remains unclear. Geographically, it's often associated with Miyake Island, which is about 100 kilometers south of Tokyo. However, reports place it much farther near volcanic islands like Iwo Jima, which is over 1,200 kilometers from Japan's coast. Since it's not officially marked on maps, its precise size and perimeter are undetermined. According to legends, the waters of the Devil's Sea are treacherous enough to swallow even the sturdiest ships. This reputation comes from historical accounts of unexplained disappearances. There's one story that involves Kublai Khan, the fifth great Khan of the Mongol Empire, and the grandson of Genghis Khan, who attempted to invade Japan in 1274 and 1281. Both of his efforts failed after massive typhoons struck the area and apparently sank his fleet and claimed the lives of 40,000 crew members. The Japanese saw these events as divine intervention, believing that the storm were sent by their gods to protect the nation. There's another story from the early 1800s which describes a woman seen aboard a strange vessel in the Devil's Sea. The ship was said to resemble an incense burner, but its origins and purpose remain unknown. In the mid-20th century, there are reports of disappearances became more frequent. Fishing vessels and at least 5 military ships vanished in the area between Miyake Island and Iwo Jima. In 1952, Japan sent the research ship Kaio Maru No. 5 to investigate these reports. This ship also disappeared, and although its wreckage was eventually found, the fate of its 31 crew members is unexplained. This incident led the Japanese government to declare the region dangerous for maritime activities and to cease any further investigations. The name Devil's Sea originates from ancient stories. The term dragon in the Dragon's Triangle comes from Chinese legends that describe dragons living beneath the water, attacking ships to satisfy their hunger. These myths date back to around 1000 BCE. Also, the Japanese name Ma no Umi, translating to the Sea of the Devil, shows their belief that supernatural forces inhabit the area and discourages sailors from venturing into its waters. Over time though, scientific explanations have been made regarding the Devil's Sea. Marine researcher Ivan Sanderson suggested that intersecting hot and cold currents in the region could create electromagnetic disturbances which potentially affects the ships and navigation. There's another theory that points to undersea volcanic activity. The area is known for its seismic instability, with islands appearing and disappearing due to volcanic eruptions. Such activity could explain the sudden loss of vessels, as eruptions might generate waves of disturbances powerful enough to sink ships. Some researchers have also linked the phenomenon to methane hydrates on the ocean floor. When these compounds destabilize, methane gas is released and creates bubbles on the water surface. This leads to reduced buoyancy, which can cause ships to sink without any debris left over. Now, the Devil's Sea has also attracted attention from paranormal theorists. In 1989, there was an American writer known as Charles Berlitz who explored its mysteries in his book The Dragon's Triangle. He claimed that more than 700 people had died in the area due to its malevolent nature, and said that incidents such as the loss of Japanese military vessels, and talked about incidents like the loss of Japanese military vessels. However, Berlitz's claims were later challenged. In 1995, researcher Larry Kusch published The Bermuda Triangle Mystery Solved, arguing that many of Berlitz's claims were exaggerated. It was stated that the vessels Berlitz described as military ships were actually fishing boats, and that the disappearances of the research ship in 1952 was caused by a volcanic eruption and not paranormal forces. Kuj also corrected his claim about the ship's crew size, noting that it carried only 31 people rather than 100. Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench is located in the western Pacific Ocean. It lies mostly east and south of the Mariana Islands and is part of a network of deep trenches that are formed at subduction zones where tectonic plates collide and one slides beneath the other. It stretches over 1,500 miles long and around 43 miles wide. It reaches its great depth at Challenger Deep, which is a steep valley southwest of Guam. This trench is within the territories of the Northern Mariana Islands and Guam and was a designated U.S. National Monument in 2009. Measuring the trench's depth has been a challenge for many years. The first recorded attempt was in 1875 during the Challenger expedition, which measured a depth of 26,850 feet near its southern end. Over time, though, tools have advanced and provided better measurements. In 1957, the Soviet ship Vityaz recorded a new depth of 36,056 feet, which was later revised to 36,201 feet. In 2011, a U.S. expedition measured Challenger Deep at 36,070 feet and confirmed it as the deepest known point on Earth. There's another significant feature about the trench, which is known as the Mariana Deep, located south of Guam and east of Challenger Deep. It was discovered in 1997 by the Hawaii Mapping Research Group and is nearly as deep, with measurements ranging from 34,000 to over 35,000. The first descent to its bottom took place on January 23, 1916, when Jacques Piccard, a Swiss ocean engineer, and U.S. Navy officer Don Walsh used the Bathscape Trieste to reach a depth of 35,814 feet in Challenger Deep. This dive held the record for over 50 years. Then, more recently, on March 26, 2012, Canadian filmmaker James Cameron piloted submersible deep-sea Challenger, which he helped design, to a depth of 35,756 feet, making him the first person to reach Challenger Deep by himself. The trench isn't just about the depth, though. It's also home to unique geological and biological activity. Near the trench, the northwest Ifuku submarine volcano features white smoke vents that release mineral-rich water and liquid carbon dioxide. These areas host life forms that thrive in extreme conditions like tropical fish and corals around the volcano's summit. The creatures living at the bottom of the trench face even harsher conditions though, and they are able to survive freezing temperatures, immense pressure, and complete darkness. Underground ocean. Scientists have uncovered evidence of a massive reservoir of water hidden deep beneath the Earth's surface, potentially changing our understanding of how the planet was formed. This water is estimated to be enough to fill Earth's oceans 3 times over, but it's not free-flowing, but is trapped within a mineral called ringwoodite, which is located over 600 kilometers below the surface. This finding challenges theories we've had about the Earth's water arriving from icy comets during its formation. Instead, it suggested that water may have originated deep within the planet and was driven to the surface by geological processes. Steve Jacobson, who's a geophysicist from Northwestern University, explained that phenomena like earthquakes and volcanic eruptions may reflect internal processes happening far below the surface. Jacobson believes this discovery points to a whole Earth water cycle, providing insights into how Earth maintains such a vast amount of surface water. He noted that scientists have been searching for evidence of this deep water for many years. This research is the first to provide direct evidence of water in the Earth's mantle, specifically within a region called the transition zone, which is between the upper and lower mantle. The findings were based on a combination of seismic data and laboratory experiments. Researchers used the US Array, which is a network of seismometers spread across the United States, to study vibrations caused by earthquakes. These measurements were paired with high-pressure simulations of mantle rocks in Jacobson's lab to mimic the condition found more than 600 kilometers underground. Ringwoodite, which is a key material in the discovery, has a unique crystal structure that allows it to absorb hydrogen and tap water, acting like a sponge. Even if 1% of the mantle's rock weight in the transition zone is water, it would be equal to over 3 times the volume of water in Earth's oceans. This shows a very large, hidden reservoir that has gone undetected until now. The study also showed that melting and rock movement within the transition zone might create conditions where the water becomes trapped. Before, scientists believed that melting in the mantle occurred much closer to the surface, at depths of about 80 kilometers. The discovery of water being locked away so far below challenges these earlier assumptions we had and expands our understanding of geological processes. Jacobson proposed that his hidden water reservoir might act as a stabilizing force for Earth's surface water. He thinks that it could serve as a buffer, explaining why the volume of the Earth's oceans has remained relatively constant over many years. Without this deep reserve, much of the water could have surfaced and covered the majority of the planet, leaving only mountaintops exposed. Julia. On March 1st, 1999, NOAA's Autonomous Hydrophone Array in the eastern equatorial Pacific recorded an unusual sound that we now know as Julia. This noise lasted for over a minute, and it resembled a distorted underwater voice, leading to the name Julia. The source of the sound was pointed to a region between the Bransfield Straits and Cap Adre, which is an area near the Antarctic. NOAA researchers think that the Julia sound was likely caused by a large iceberg running aground off Antarctica. This explanation aligns with other underwater noises like Bloop, which was linked to the ice-related activity. Icebergs scraping against the seafloor or colliding with other ice masses can produce very powerful, low-frequency sounds that travel very far throughout the ocean. Despite the scientific explanation, there is a lot of misinformation around Julia online. There's one hoax that there are images from a supposed NASA Apollo 3385 mission that captured a massive shadow in the water at the time the sound was recorded. The shadow was described as being twice the size of the Empire State Building. However, there is no Apollo mission that exists with this name, and NASA's work is almost always classified, and this debunks the theory. 1968 Submarine Disappearances. In 1968, there were several submarines from different nations that disappeared. This was a year that was marked by international unrest, with the Soviet Union invading Czechoslovakia to take over the Prague Spring, and the United States dealing with civil rights and the assassinations of Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. Submarines, which benefited from advances in technology, which is often referred to as the submarine revolution, could now stay submerged for long periods and operate undetected. Many were equipped with torpedoes, advanced intelligence gathering equipment, and in some cases, nuclear weapons. Despite them being so sophisticated, there were 4 major submarine incidents that occurred in the first half of the year, leaving questions about their causes. The Israel submarine INS Docker, which is a T-class diesel-electric submarine which was originally used in World War II, was one of the vessels lost. It was purchased from the UK and was extensively modernized. The Dakar began its maiden voyage under Israeli command on January 9, 1968, departing from Portsmouth, England, bound for Haifa. It maintained regular communication during its journey, even stopping in Gibraltar and bypassing Crete. However, on January 25, all contact with it was lost. Its last known position was 160 kilometers west of Cyprus. An extensive search and rescue effort was launched involving Israel, the United States, Turkey, UK, Lebanon, and Greece. On February 9, there was an emergency buoy belonging to the Dakar that was discovered near Cyprus, but the submarine itself wasn't found. Eventually, the search was abandoned. Later on in 1999, the wreck was located at a depth of about 3,000 meters between Crete and Cyprus, though the cause of its sinking is still undetermined. It is suggested that there were structural flaws or damage from rapid dive exercises. 2 days later, the Dakar's disappearance, the French submarine Minerve vanished in the Gulf of Lion near Toulon, France. The submarine was carrying 45 crew members and was last heard from shortly before it was expected to dock at Toulon. A large-scale research effort involving 20 vessels and numerous aircrafts were sent out but failed to locate it. The wreck wasn't discovered until 2019, and it was about 40 kilometers south of Toulon at a depth of 2,000 meters. Bad weather, including hurricane-level storms in the area, is one of the considered options of it being lost. The Soviet submarine K-129 was part of the Pacific Fleet, and it disappeared while on ballistic missile combat patrol. After completing initial dive tests, it missed a routine check-in on March 8. The Soviets conducted an intensive search for their nuclear-armed vessel, which drew the attention of the US, eager to recover critical intelligence. Although the Soviets eventually halted their search, the CIA, using the guise of Howard Hughes Global Marine, launched its own operation. There are fragments of the K-129 located on August 20, 1968, and was approximately 2,400 kilometers northwest of Hawaii. The exact cause of its sinking is still unknown, but theories range from an onboard explosion to a collision or attack. The American submarine USS Scorpion was another vessel that was lost that year too. It was specialized in submarine warfare and equipped with nuclear weapons. It was on a mission to monitor Soviet activity near the Azores. On the 22nd of May, the Scorpion transmitted its last message, saying that it was tracking a Soviet ship. Soon after, it disappeared. There was a search effort that concluded the wreckage was found 740 kilometers southwest of the Azores. Hydroacoustic analysis says that it could have been an explosion, but the exact cause is still unclear. The wreck was radioactive because of the nuclear material on board, and there are theories that talk about mechanical failure, collision, or a specific attack. Coconut crabs. Coconut crabs are often described as mega crabs since they're the largest dwelling crustaceans in the world. They have a leg span that can reach up to 1 meter, and these massive arthropods hold the Guinness World Record as the biggest land-dwelling members of their group, which includes insects, spiders, and centipedes. Although they're not as large as Japanese spider crabs, which can span up to 3.7 meters claw to claw, coconut crabs are unique because they spend their adult lives entirely on land. These crabs have a lifespan of up to 60 years, and they reach their sexual maturity around 5 years of age. Between May and September, they mate, and females release their eggs into the water. The larvae hatch and drift for 4 to 6 weeks on floating debris like coconuts or logs. After, they transform into shrimp-like forms known as glaucotho, which settle on the seabed and seek out gastropod shells for protection. Juveniles migrate toward the shore and remain near the high tide line for another month before shedding their reliance on shells. Adult coconut crabs develop a tough exoskeleton that protects their bodies since they no longer use shells. Despite starting life in the water though, adult coconut crabs can't swim and they'll drown submerged in water for long periods of time. Instead of gills, they have brachiostegal lungs which allow them to breathe air. Their habitats go from Indo-Pacific to islands near Africa's Zanzibar to the Gambier Islands in the eastern Pacific. They thrive in coastal forests with rocky crevices and soft soil for digging burrows and have been found as far as 6 kilometers inland on some islands. Now, as they're named coconut crabs, they're known for breaking into coconuts to eat their flesh. Their curved claw-like legs help them climb palm trees to access their food. However, their diet isn't just coconuts. They also eat fruits, nuts, seeds, and sometimes even hunt. Coconut crabs are pretty formidable predators and are capable of attacking rats and other coconut crabs, and sometimes even large seabirds. They hunt at night and have been observed ambushing their prey near their burrows, which shows how they can adapt when coconuts are scarce. They're equipped with powerful pincers that can easily crack open coconuts, which is hard for most humans. These pincers have a serrated edge resembling teeth that give off a force that's greater than any human grip. Studies have been conducted to measure its force and has been found to be up to 1700 newtons, while humans' bite force is only 1100 to 1300 newtons. Larger coconut crabs weigh around 4 kilograms and could produce a force up to 3300 newtons. These crabs are also able to lift objects that weigh up to 30 kilograms, which is essential for them to access their food and navigate their environment. Now, despite their dominance in isolated island ecosystems, these coconut crabs are still at risk. They're listed as a vulnerable species on the IUCN Red List because of overharvesting and habitat loss. There are many island communities that rely on coconut crabs for food and income, and this leads to population decline. Habitat destruction, slow population growth, and climate change make them even more vulnerable. In order to reduce these risks, Pacific Islands have implemented regulations to protect coconut crabs. These regulations include minimum harvest sizes, protections for egg-bearing females, quotas on farming, sometimes restrictions or even bans on exporting the species.